Hi, everybody. I'm here with Graeme Marshall, who is my fellow countryman, despite being thousands and thousands of miles away right now. And we're going to be talking about great recruiter enablement. So, Graeme, give us a quick introduction to you, first of all.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, my name's Graeme Marshall. I'm based in Houston, Texas, from Scotland originally. I've been leading talent acquisition functions really for the last 15 plus years. I came out through the oil and gas sector with Baker Hughes, and then most recently into the high volume call center recruiting with Conduent. And I think as of last year, had hit 121 countries that I'd managed to recruit into. So fairly well versed in the nuances of the more difficult locations around the world. So good to be here, Adam.
Are you well versed in 121 different languages, however, to
I think when you're Scottish and can prop yourself up at a bar with anyone, there's no language barrier that I've not been able to overcome. So yeah.
It's a very good point. Okay. So, when you're working internationally, there is a lot to know in terms of, you need to know about local employment laws, and you've probably got different hiring policies and different comp and bends, and there's different recruitment processes and all that sort of thing. So, like, you've led international teams. Let's talk about recruiter enablement in that context. How there's so much for people to they need to know so many things. They need to have loads of assets. They need to within the international context. Let's just talk about the subject of recruiter enablement. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, it's huge because you've got all of the same issues that you would have in a single site location, but typically when you move internationally, to your point, the multi-site locations, multi-culture, multi-legislative issues just become exponentially more difficult. And I think for me, when you look at recruiter enablement, it almost has to start with, on that maturity curve, what are we starting with? Because to your earlier point, you could be dealing with multiple tools, multiple systems, you could be dealing with multiple legislations. But if we've already solved for that, and then you're moving into the I guess, the softer skills around the talent attraction side and what the market really needs, it really depends on where you stand on the maturity level. So one of the things that certainly internationally we've always tried to do with my teams is, what are the systems and processes that they're using, and can we get them to at least a base level where everyone is speaking the same language and everyone is doing the same basic tools. Then you can customize it for region capabilities. But once you're working off that platform, and a recruiter can go in and say, well, today I'm recruiting for site A or site B or site C, whether it's country or whether it's location specific, they know what they're doing from a tools perspective. It's then trying to feed them the value proposition, the candidate value proposition of why join this organization. And that really is when your talent marketing teams can kick in and tell the story and become the guru of what makes this employer differentiated from what you've got just now. So it's a host of or a matrix of things that come down to it. So for me, it's not just, can the recruiter click a button and push someone through a system? It's have we got the core systems for them to work? Have we got the core talent marketing platforms to work? And then that's when you move into the cool stuff, like the AI and automation piece that everyone's talking about. But none of that works if you've got a broken process to begin with.
Yeah, it sounds like the way you described that, it sounds like, the whole thing around enabling recruiters, it's really very much wrapped up in your TA strategy. Like the whole thing is interwoven. Tell us about, like, how do you think about the difference between the strategy and then the tactical deployment? And also, how do you staff for that? And how do you deliver that with people and processes and technology?
It's one of those, it depends. So I also go back to the maturity. So at this point, the maturity of the organization, is it the type of organization that has a workforce planning function and knows where its revenue is coming from, versus is it the company that looks 2-3 weeks down the line going, I really need to make a quick decision, what are we going to do here? So it's the ideal scenario for any recruiter out there is working for a company that the first week of January they go, right, there's your 12-month hiring plan, and go and build me a strategy around that. That doesn't exist for 80% of the companies that I know, regardless of how they talk about workforce planning. They're not that succinct and capable, simply because unlike other sales functions, when you're dealing with people change their minds all the time. So both on the hiring manager side and on the candidate side. So your strategy for me then largely comes around what's the tendencies of the business, what's it looked like in the last few years in terms of how it goes to market, how it hires both the types of people, the caliber of people, and do they stick as well, the stickiness of candidates over a 1, 2, 3 year period, to then allow you to say, well, let's break it down quarter by quarter. What do I need to achieve in Q1? Is it a volume of staff? Is it a skill set of staff? Is it that unicorn that doesn't exist? Because then you're looking at 2 or 3 different types of strategies. Are you looking at the high volume piece where AI and tech is your go-to solution? You want things quick, you want them fast, you want high turnover of the system and process in order to get the folk you need? Or is it that unicorn where you maybe want to engage your search team and you want to start building out your market maps and start building out really that talent pipeline of where you want to go to market? But trying to get that all to knit together, trying to afford it, and trying to get it in the timelines that the business needs that's the game. That's part of the fun.
From a leadership perspective, who outside of the TA organization, who needs to approve this, and who needs to be bought in, and who needs to be influencers, and who do you have to kind of, who's your sort of key stakeholders involved in all of this?
That's the cool thing about TA, because the answer is absolutely everyone. I have never met or worked with anyone in my entire career that's a professional that hasn't used the phrase, I used to do your job. And whether they are in IT or in admin or in HR or the CEO or the CFO, if you're in a leadership position, you've had to hire someone most likely in your career, and then you put yourself in the mindset of, well, I could be a recruiter. And I'm sure many people could, but the reality is you can't. So because of that scenario, anytime you touch anything in TA, everyone feels it's theirs. They feel that you're moving their cheese, that it's part of their tools, their systems. So it's not like some of the other functions where my colleagues in finance or IT might change something behind the scenes and they send out an email going, this has changed. If I change anything, it's the user interface, it's the experience, it's the emotive part of recruiting that I need to get people on board with. So my budgeting, yes, it starts with finance and it starts with a business plan of what are the widgets that I need to make in terms of making the revenue plans for the business through people. But my marketing colleagues want to know about that. My HR colleagues want to know about that. My IT colleagues want to know what tools I'm going to be messing with in the back office that will affect their budgets as well. The hiring manager community want to know, what are you going to do to change the culture in this team? Or what are you going to do to change the dynamics of that team? So it literally is sitting in a room with as many people as you can and being that recruitment evangelist of, go back to your sales pitch of, why is this going to be important for you? Why is this change going to make your role, your department, your business better? And once you buy them into the vision, it's backing it into its components of, right, IT, that means that new tools coming in Q2. HR, that means we're going to have to train your businesses on the new software that we're putting in. So finance, you need to open up the wallet and get me some money. So it's a bit of everything really, but it's one of the unique functions that I think spans so horizontally across multi-functions that I don't see the commonality with other teams.
Yeah, no, it resonates with me. Everybody's been a candidate or they've been a hiring manager, so therefore they know recruitment and they want to get involved in your business and they've got an opinion. I get that.
Yeah.
And so you've been in leadership roles for 15 years. What's changed in that time? Like, it feels like recruitment's more complex than it ever was, but I don't know if that's your impression as well. Like, what are the main things that have changed over the last 15 years? And then we'll come on to, what do you think is going to continue to change?
I think the maturity of recruiting has changed. I mean, even with the introduction of the phrase talent acquisition, which was probably about 15 odd years ago as well, it started off as just a nice fancy word as job titles evolved. But I truly believe that talent acquisition in its hierarchy has added so many facets to what we do, whether it's the front end and the marketing stage, whether it's the back end, the processing and the onboarding and the compliance side. It knits it all together, because if I span my career in recruitment, I started out as an agency recruiter, as a headhunter, moving then in-house and saw the development of what the skill sets you need from an agency hunter mentality to the skill sets you need to then run multidisciplinary recruitment teams. And I think how that's changed for me in the last 15 years is, and I guess it depends on the industry as well. I've switched industries during that time, but for me, organizations always go through a very similar journey, and that is you get your 0 to 10,000 headcount, where they start as a startup and they go through, well, let's buy an ATS, and they can't afford an ATS, so it becomes some form of Excel-driven database that then, when they get themselves into the 15 to 20,000 headcount or a revenue number that ties, it's like, let's go a little bit more formal, so you start getting one of the top shelf ATSs. Then when you jump into like the 30,000 headcount, some consultant comes along and says you need to restructure your business, and you end up with this one HR concept, and they bring everything back. So you go this centralized, decentralized jargon. And where I found my sweet spot over the years is that sort of 50,000 headcount plus, where they've realized that they've got themselves into a mess. They've got maybe 2 ATSs running, multiple contracts running, finance of 10 different systems, and they need to then bring it all together to make it work. And that's where you get the fun, because you've got a story to tell with an organization that's typically in a growth platform. You've usually got a legacy of culture, so that you know what are your recruiters like doing and not like doing. Because as a recruiter, we're not great at admin. We want as little admin as possible, and we want the conversation time with candidates. So I've seen that change. I mean, technology enablement over the last 15 years has allowed us to be able to push through that quite quickly. But if you haven't got the basics in place, like I said earlier on, with the right process and the right tools and the right process, you end up just getting bogged down into this hierarchy or sea of approvals, and that is something that certainly has changed in the last 15 years. But I think it's a legacy issue that will continue really pulling through for the next few years. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, you said that recruiters don't like admin, and I completely agree with that. And you talked about technology enablement. You earlier on referenced artificial intelligence. Like, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but like, what can you see potentially happening within the sort of structure of a TA team over the coming years? What sort of tasks are going to potentially become less human, and what other tasks might emerge?
Yeah, I think so. I read up on AI quite a lot, both in a personal level and a professional level, and I've kind of sat on the fence for a long time on this, because I've read multiple journals and articles around how advanced AI is today in the HR space and the TA space, and I've also read counter arguments that really say we're not quite there yet. And I think I find myself jumping off that fence into, we're not quite there yet. We don't know what to do with it yet. And I think fundamentally my reasoning behind that is, anytime anyone automates something, it gets branded as AI. And for me, that's not AI, that's automation. AI for me is when you have the program that can actually think for itself, that it's not just following a sequence of commands and churning out the same thing. It's following those sequence of commands, but getting different data sets that it hasn't been trained for, learning for it, and moving forward. And I don't think we're mature enough yet from an HR or a TA organization point of view to really truly jump into AI yet. I think automation needs to be the next couple of years. Get the systems, get the tools, get the automation right, so that manual tasks can come off recruiters' desks, and then start building in the learning aspect of AI. Now, we do use it. I mean, chatbots on websites and stuff, I know they're programmed with standard answers, and certainly some of the bigger players out there are getting quite creative with allowing those chatbots to answer more and more questions. But you've always got to balance that with your legal team, your compliance team. What's the tolerance of an AI or bot answering on our behalf and saying the wrong thing? What's the litigation costs of that? So there's a real balance between what you can do and what you should do and what you're allowed to do. But I think just because of the complexities of organizations, using that analogy of the 0 to 20, 20 to 30 headcount, 30,000 headcount, so many organizations out there, even take the FTSE 100, they've got so many basic things that need fixed before they can start looking at the cute things around the AI space. So I'm absolutely all for AI. I'm jumping into AI. I hope my next role that I source is in that space because it's something I'm really passionate about. But I want to be part of an enterprise that we've got all the basics right, and then we're using it to really push forward TA as a profession.
Got it. Graeme, thank you very much for your time today. It's been good to talk. It's been great to hear your insights, and looking forward to watching what you do next and catching up with you soon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.